you should probably feel a little uncomfortable taking nothing but free stuff from a Black business, because you're putting that business owner out of business and you're destroying your community by being not a beneficiary to Black businesses. You're being a parasite. And we can't, a tree cannot survive if all they have are parasites and no nutrients are going into that tree.
Yeah, that's one of my soapbox topics. So I know we're not talking about this per se today, but I just want to go ahead and put this out there. I know for an absolute fact that giving everything away for free doesn't work. And I'm gonna tell you why. Like I said, I've been self-employed for 12 years. I have over the years done live workshops, live events, and given away a lot of free content, loads and loads of free content. And what I found unequivocally across the board is that every single person that I've given, a free program to, or a free course to, or free, just a free help to in any capacity, they're not any further along than where they were when I first gave them the free information. It has never happened. So people don't value free information. I don't even know why the expectation is that everything should be free when it really shouldn't. People do not value it and they don't do anything with it. They just kind of like demand it and want it because of, I don't know, maybe just psychological conditioning behind it. But I've never had any client that I've ever worked with do shit with anything that I've given them for free, period. It's
Wow.
not happened.
Wow. Well, I think that, to me, I think that we have to be cautious about seeing ourselves as a charity case anyway. You're not really going to get respect from the world if you're a community that will only spend money on stupid things. Because everybody knows Black people will go, buy a new car, buy new shoes, stuff like that. They know we'll buy movie tickets. That's why they're making Black Panther Part 2. So they're like, we're going to make another billion from Black people, because Black people will buy a movie ticket, right? And so when you become known as a community who will only write a check for things that you want, but claim poverty when it comes to things that you need, or making an investment in yourself, then that's actually the term I created for that is actually what I call economic immaturity. Economic immaturity is where you spend money like a child. If you give $20 to a child and you say, what are you going to do with your $20? They're going to say, I'm going to buy a toy, I'm going to buy some candy, I'm going to buy something that's going to make me feel good. They're not going to be like, oh, well, I'm going to pay the light bill and I got some medical bills to handle. And you know what I mean? I'm going to invest it in my 401k. Like, 6-year-old ain't going to do that. They're going to be like, where the candy at? And so a lot of us keep that childhood mentality into adulthood, where you give somebody a bunch of money and they're like, where the liquor at? I'm going to the movies this weekend, or I got my taxes back. I'm going to do fill in the blank, right? And it doesn't mean everybody thinks that way. I'm not saying everyone thinks that way, but I think that there is something to be said about the fact that we are notoriously famous amongst corporations for being the ultimate consumer. We love to consume. We love to buy things just to buy things. And in fact, actually, I just did something. If you guys want to look for the video, it's on drboycetv.com. I did a video on why you should never buy a new car. And one study I cited was a study in which, no Black people were involved in this study. It was non-Black people talking to other non-Black people about how to get money from Black people. And one thing that they said is African Americans love new cars. So the translation is African Americans love to make horrible investments. So go get this money while they're giving it up cheap. Right? So we got to process this economic maturity. Please hit the thumbs up button. If you haven't hit the thumbs up button, please do that. I'm talking to Danielle Pierce from economicelevation.com. We're talking about easy ways to make an extra $1,000 a month. So Danielle, I want to ask you about this. I'll tell you, when I think about the importance of making that extra $1,000 a month, I remember how just that little bit of extra money, even when I was making pennies, it really meant a lot to have that little bit of extra money, because I found that when I had that extra grand a month, number one, that was 2 or 3 bills I could handle with that money, right? Which means that my paycheck, that money could be allocated towards saving or investing in my business. The extra $1,000, it relieved a lot of economic pressure. It's like a lot of times we get to where our bills they match the amount of money we make. And when you have that little bit of ease at the top, that extra $1,000, it's like almost like you can breathe easier. It's psychologically fulfilling, less stress, etc. And then the other thing that was really exciting to me about making that extra money for the first time was it was like I broke out of a psychological barrier. Up until I was probably in my 30s, I had never really imagined myself in a situation where I could not make money without having a boss or having an employer right? So when I suddenly was introduced to this world where you can make this money and you don't have a boss, I was like, oh, well, I want more where that came from. Like, this is, so it's almost like it's like a breakthrough in a way. Because, in fact, when I started, and then, so when I made that first 1,000, I was like, okay, well, let's see if we can get to 1,500. Let's see if we can get to 2,000. And then what happened was I still had a job while I was making the extra money. And what occurred then was I suddenly became, less concerned about whether or not my boss gave me a raise. You know what I mean? I every year we when I was on the faculty at Syracuse, we would have these big fights over who's going to get a 2% raise versus a 3% raise. And I remember saying to my chairman, as a kind of an olive branch, I said, don't worry about me. You don't have to give me a raise at all this year. Just give it to somebody else. And it was like me, doing a favor for him so he could do a favor for me later. But it was the reason I felt that way was because I was like, if I want to make some extra money, I know how to go out and get that. They don't know how to do that. I know how to hunt now for my food. That all they know how to do is wait for somebody to come to the cage and feed them. That's a huge advantage. And what do you think about that?
Yeah, so you touched on so many, like you speaking my language right now. So first things first, a lot of people like a Susie Orman or what's his name, Dave Ramsey. A lot of, quote unquote financial gurus will tell you things like, oh, you're broke because you spend money on Starbucks every day. If you didn't go to Starbucks and spend $6 on a drink, you would be, financially successful. And I'm speaking to, I know that y'all hear me when I say this. Sometimes we have saved and scraped and pinched and shaved down everything that is possible to cut down. We don't have no more room and it's still not enough money. How many of y'all can agree that that's the case for a lot of us? It's not that we tricking off money at Starbucks. It's not that we eating out every day. Some of us are bringing our lunch, not going to Starbucks. We are doing the absolute most that we can and still not making it. So if that is you, then you definitely are somebody that I'm talking to right now, because I know exactly what that feels like. When you watch people on YouTube, they like, oh, if you didn't spend your money on this, you'd be perfectly fine. You're like, bullshit, I'm not spending my money on this and I'm still not fine. I'm still broke. Right? So sometimes, a lot of times, the job is don't pay enough. And if you're making $8, $9, $10, $12 an hour, I mean, you can't make it nowhere with that. All that will allow you to do is basically barely pay your bills and then just, struggle and make it and scrimp and scrape until you get paid again. So with that being stated, it's not the fact that you're spending your money on dumb shit. Sometimes you just need more money. So if that's you, then these side hustles will definitely tremendously benefit you. And I forgot the most important benefit, you don't have a clock to punch. You don't have anybody telling you what to do. You don't have anybody looking over your shoulder. You have deadlines. Now you do have deadlines, but they're like, couple 2, 3, 4, 5 days out. So it's a lot less stressful than what many of you are accustomed to. I haven't worked a job in a traditional job, let me say, in a very, very long time, but I know what that feeling was like when it's like somebody give you something to do and 30 minutes later they want to update. 4 hours later, they're like, okay, what can you circle back and can you give us an update? Can you send us email? You're like, oh my God, can you leave me the fuck alone? Like, for real, can you like stop, pressing me and stressing me out? So these side hustles, you can still make, extra money, but you don't have that oversight factor. And then last thing, like you touched on as well, it will be less stressful. Many of you hate your job. Many of us have hated our jobs because, we need the job, but it's our only source of income. So when you just add, a couple more options to that, it does become less stressful. You realize you don't actually hate these people with your heart and soul. You're stressed because you need the job so much. So once you're able to see that you can bring in more money, then, like you said, a light bulb goes off. You're like, whoa, I did this. Let me see what else I can do in this internet economy. Let me see what else I can do with my cell phone besides being on Snapchat and liking pics on Instagram. Let me see what else I can, make happen with this. It's a mindset shift, and it is everything. I promise you, it's everything.
Yeah, well, everybody, I'm talking to Danielle Pierce, and we're talking about ways to make an extra $1,000 a month. Please hit the thumbs up button. If you haven't done that, please hit the thumbs up button. So let me ask you, Danielle, we've talked around the issue a lot, and you gave some examples earlier to make some extra money. How about this? I'm gonna throw out one that I've noticed that people have used that I think is really effective, and then you can throw out maybe one or two.
Okay.
But one thing I've noticed, and this may not come as news to anybody, but I've noticed a lot of people supplementing their income as Uber drivers, Uber and Lyft. I've heard so many stories. Whenever I get into an Uber and the driver is black, I start talking to them, and and hearing their story. And it's amazing how many, transformation stories I've heard from people that, literally left their jobs to just drive Uber and are making more money, things like that. I think that's a good way to make extra money, even if you still have a regular job.
Yeah, I like Uber. I like Lyft. They can be a little bit dangerous though, depending upon where you live. There was one lady who, a college student who actually, this was in the news last week, and she apparently got in the wrong car and was found raped and killed, raped and stabbed, I believe, about an hour away from where she got in the car at. Completely random. 19 years old, just got in the wrong Uber car. I'm not scaring anybody off from doing it, but you do have to be mindful about, letting, perfect strangers into your car. I probably wouldn't do Uber at night, but again, that's just me. I think you really do have to be careful. Another one that I like that I've actually done in the past is FEMA inspections. There's a lot of stuff online and a lot of things where, a lot of fraudulent websites, to be quite honest, that tell you, oh, do this to be a FEMA inspector, do this, or that. There's only 2 ways to do FEMA inspections, only 2 companies to do it with. I know both of those companies. I worked with one of them. And FEMA inspections now, they pay about, I think it's $31 or $32 an hour. And then they pay for all of your travel, airfare, hotel, if you rent a car, laundry. There's a lot that goes into it. So I'm a huge fan of doing FEMA inspections. I made $15,000 in 2 months doing that. And that's also in the Side Hustle ebook. And so, yeah, it works. Now, you got to pass background check. So you can't do FEMA inspections without passing the background check. But if you good, I mean, it beats like, Uber and Lyft by far.
Okay.